We're finally counting down the days until the start of the 2023 Duke football season. Yesterday in Charlotte, North Carolina, ACC Kickoff took place. Mike Elko and 3 Blue Devils were in attendance to speak with the media ahead of what will be a big season for our Duke Blue Devils. My buddy Josh Cox was there with the Section 17 podcast, guys. We'll talk about their visit to Charlotte, a couple of basketball thoughts, and more, all coming up on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson, and it's so great to have you here with us on this Thursday, July 27th, 2023. Hope that you're doing well. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow this podcast for free wherever you get and listen to your podcast. Your support means the world to us. Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. All that jazz means the most to us here at Locked On Blue Devils. Watch the show daily as well on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button to our YouTube channel. Coming in August, again, we're back to 5 days a week at the start of fall camp. And as Duke basketball gets set for another season upcoming, we'll give you more coverage for Duke basketball and Duke football. Again, follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. And I'm on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. On today's show, I'm so thrilled to bring back one of my good buddies, Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks, Section 17 podcast. ACC Kickoff was yesterday in Charlotte. You were there, Josh. It's been a while since we've had you on the program. Good to see you, first and foremost. I hope all is well.
Yeah, definitely, JJ. It's been a couple of weeks, and I hope everything's going well with your summer. But keep it up with the show, man. You guys are putting out great content in the offseason for sure.
Really appreciate that. So ACC Kickoff, it has arrived in Charlotte. You got a chance to be there. Kind of tell us what went down yesterday there in the Queen City.
Yeah, for sure. A little bit of a different structure this year, stretching out over 3 days. And so there were only 4 or 5 teams there yesterday. But yeah, the difference in the number of people interested in Duke football from last season to this season was absolutely incredible. Duke was well represented there. Obviously, captains Riley Leonard, Jacob Monk, Dwayne Carter were the players represented. Coach Elko there as well. And pretty much from the time that everything kicked off at 10 o'clock in the morning until the end of the afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Duke guys and Coach Elko had somewhere to be. There was someone asking for their time. They were on TV a couple of different times. They were on all different podcasts and radio shows yesterday. And it was really neat to see, when Duke went into their breakout room, like the flood of media that went to the breakout room. So we threw a picture up on our Twitter timeline at Duke FB Talk, a picture of Riley Leonard, and said, last season there was no media hype. And in fact, in that room last year, there were fewer than 10 media members. And I snapped a picture of 40, 50 media members gathered around Riley, at any given time. And so it was really neat to see the guys handle themselves well. And yeah, let's be honest. Florida State was there. Mike Norvell was there. Jordan Travis was there. I didn't even see him. We were all Duke. We were with them the whole day, and it was a really neat experience.
What was the main message you think that Mike Elko wanted to share with the football world? A lot of people love those opening statements from the head coach, and the head coaches all take time because they know how important those remarks could be. What do you believe Coach Elko's main message was to the entire conference?
I mean, I think it's that last season wasn't a fluke. That they put in the work last year. Last year was not the luck of the draw. In fact, you could make the argument that Duke was on the raw end of a couple of deals last year. And so last season was not a fluke. They have a blueprint at Duke that they believe is successful, and they're going to replicate that blueprint this year. And so I think that was the message. It's like, hey, I get it. We were a nice story last year, but we actually really think we're that good. Like Riley Leonard, we really think we have one of the top quarterbacks in the league, like Dwayne Carter, Graham Barton. Let's go down the line. And so I think that was the message that Coach Elko wanted to get out. It's like, we're not a one-hit wonder here. We're here to stay.
Well, so much so we're here to stay that going into the week, big news comes out that Mike Elko has already received a contract extension. It's pretty good, Josh. Only 1 year on the job at a program like Duke, where it has historically been more challenging to win and to compete in the ACC. And here we are. We've already got a contract extension for the head coach.
I thought it was interesting as well. I mean, Duke publicized the expiration year of 2029, and obviously being a private university, there's nothing that says Duke has to sell any details of any sort of contract. But I believe they were sending a message to other schools and to recruits and families that, hey, listen, we're locking him in long term. We want him here. And obviously things can happen, right? I mean, but it makes it a whole lot more difficult for him to leave based upon this contract extension that he's gotten. And so what a great move, I believe, by Nina King and the administration. To me, it's them keeping their word of, we're going to do everything in our power to keep him and the coaching staff here. If you noticed a little sentence in the GoDuke.com article, this included incentives and salary bumps even for the assistant coaches. And that's a huge deal because we know this is not just a head coach. There's a lot more that goes into it. And so very important. The timing of it was great. I loved it right before media day. He got asked about it a few times. And so, yeah, kudos to Nina King, athletic department, and the university for locking him in.
And then, as you said, 3 players were also with Coach Elko in Charlotte yesterday. Quarterback Riley Leonard, Jacob Monk from the O-line, and then, of course, Dwayne Carter, who's no stranger to the ACC kickoff festivities and the media and spotlight attention. The decision to have those 3 players representing Duke football, talk to me about that.
Yeah, they are 3 of the 4 captains, obviously the 4th being Jamion Franklin. As you mentioned, Dwayne, this was his 3rd year representing Duke as a captain there. And so I believe they do send captains. You know, it's a little interesting. Obviously, Jacob Monk, his leadership is super important. Riley is a no-brainer. But you do have guys sitting at home like Graham Barton, who will potentially be a first-round draft pick, who was not participating. It's not necessarily Graham's, thing. Graham is pretty cool guy just to sit in the background and do his thing. But those 3 guys represented well. Jacob's got history with Duke, obviously with his dad, Stanley, also playing at Duke. Jacob's a senior. And so that's his, kind of his niche with the media. And then Dwayne, as they call him, Mr. Duke, he can talk to anybody for any amount of time. My man, hand him a microphone and just let him loose. And then Riley is he's so genuine, I feel like, with the media. He gets nervous. He will share that privately, but he gets very nervous. But his personality really shines, and he's very honest. If you ask him an honest question, he's going to give you an honest answer. And there's just something kind of pure about the way he answers questions that I think endear him to a lot of people. And so those guys did very well. Like I said, they had a lot more attention this year, a lot more cameras on them than they did last year at this time.
Again, we're counting down the days to the start of the Duke football season. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see that schedule for Duke football rolling across the bottom of your screen, counting down to that Labor Day first game of the season when Duke gets set to take on Clemson. I want to talk a little bit more about ACC Kickoff and some of the conversations with our buddy Josh Cox after we take our first time out here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our very good friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where you need to be. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, again, JJ Jackson alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk's Section 17 podcast. Section 17 podcast, here we are getting set for the 2023 season. Kind of give us a brief history overview of you guys for folks who might be, like others, wanting to know what Duke football is all about now that they've got some momentum behind the program. Promote your stuff, Josh, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. We're beginning our 4th season of covering the Duke football program from a unique perspective. We are media credentialed, but we really try to stay fan focused and fan forward. And so we try to bring you content that you as a fan would like, maybe some behind the scenes personal stuff. And we're going to be able to bring you even more of that. We have an announcement we'll be making in the next a couple of weeks to let you know how you can access even more of that type of content. And so we're excited about that. But yeah, we have a podcast that we do weekly throughout the season. We'll be dropping our first one on August the 22nd. And then we'll be doing a Clemson preview, and then we'll be every week talking about what happened in the previous game, previewing the upcoming game, and just trying to bring you as good content as we can. Our website, DukeFootballTalk.com, is where you can find all of our podcasts, our merch store, everything like that. So we're on all the social channels at Duke FB Talk, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and we have a Facebook group as well. So yeah, come check us out. We are Duke football centered, and so this is all about football. We don't even, in fact, I know we're about to talk basketball in a little bit, JJ, but like according to our podcast, Duke doesn't even play basketball. They're a football only school.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Unless you're Riley Leonard, who was quite the basketball player himself up and coming. So talking about that football team, and again, with the season getting closer, more people are paying attention to Duke football. Being at ACC Kickoff, having been to Media Day festivities for college football throughout my career, when you're in the building, Josh, you can't help but pick up on chatter that folks in the media are talking about. And on Duke Day, or on Florida State Day, as you mentioned, with Mike Norvell there, we'll hear chatter on North Carolina Day when Drake May and Mac Brown enter the building. Amongst the media, what is the conversation about Duke? When we're looking at the hierarchy of the league, where were you hearing people kind of putting the Blue Devils?
Yeah, well, first of all, it was interesting because in fact, we had a couple of I would say the more well-known media members actually speak to us ahead of time and say, hey, like what are some things we need to know, right, about like Mike Elko or Riley Leonard or you know what I mean, whatever. So I thought that was kind of neat. It's like the bigger guys wanting to really hone in on their interviews with Coach Elko. But I believe what you're seeing across the league is I believe everybody's in that wait and see. Like, I think Duke has got respect. I think Mike Elko has demanded respect from the league. But I do believe the league is saying, okay, like, that was a great season. We believe in you. We want to see it. Like, let's see it. And the schedule this year, that's not what we're here to talk about, but the schedule this year is significantly more difficult than last year's schedule. There's a chance that Duke could be a much better football team than last year, and their record not necessarily reflect that. I think anybody that knows a little bit about football understands that, but I do believe that's the vibe. I believe there are plenty of people in the ACC who are willing to put Duke in that top 4, top 5 in the league. I think they're ready to do that, and I think they want to see the product on the field. Duke has an incredible opportunity to show that they've really arrived Labor Day night, on national TV. Honestly, I don't even think that it has to be a win against Clemson, even though I think we can do that. I think it's just got to be Duke belongs on that field, and it's not a blowout, and you know what I mean? And like Duke is like nose-to-nose, man-to-man with the Clemson Tigers. I believe that's important. Very first week out the gate to show that we're here, we're good. We did return 17 starters. We are ready to take that next step.
Yeah, the returning production for this Duke team is really impressive, and I think that that's something that everybody kind of wants to point to. Been there, done that, you know what you can expect, and now the question is, can they take that next step forward, given all the talent that they've got coming back? And then in the trenches, Josh, like that's where football, you need to be dominant, and it feels like Duke feels pretty good that they're pretty pleased with where they're at in the trenches on both sides of the football.
For sure. I mean, that's led by, on the offensive side, by Graham Barton. It's led on the defensive side by Dwayne Carter. However, you're seeing R.J. Oben getting, more and more publicity coming off the edge there. This is year number 2 for VJ Anthony. And so I believe that's, and then obviously the interior line, you've got Jamion Franklin, who's a team captain. You also have Aeneas Peebles, who is like an interchangeable link there. And so defensive line looks good. Offensive line, honestly, me personally, I'm a little nervous about the offensive line, just a tad. I think there needed to be at least one more, transfer that would stick. But Duke feels very confident in there. A big decision or development would be Maurice McIntyre, who went out with a very serious lower leg injury last season. Will he get back? Will he be available for Duke this year? If he is, offensive line, I believe, is going to be stellar.
You're listening to Locked On Blue Devils here today. JJ Jackson alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Again, follow them on Twitter at Duke FB Talk, and you'll have tons of great football coverage to be discussing. We'll have more football conversations with Josh throughout the rest of the season and in the weeks to come. But I do want to switch gears while you're here with us, Josh. A lot of people wanting to talk about this Duke basketball team. You mentioned earlier that this is not something that the Section 17 podcast focus on whatsoever, which is why I love giving you an outlet to share your thoughts that I love about Duke hoops. So we're getting more content being posted these days. Photos, videos, scrimmages. I mean, we are seeing the Duke basketball team put in work this summer. What's standing out to you?
Well, number one, I love the summer content. And I know that the availability for summer work has been a constantly evolving thing in the NCAA. But I love the fact that teams get out there and can get some run in, and the social media teams are able to provide that content. I think that's wonderful for fans. I will say this. I believe sometimes it can cause some overreaction on both sides, right? I believe we can get very high on a player based upon a clip that we saw on social media.
Absolutely.
And then we can also get low on a guy that, you know what I mean, that we see some sort of clip and, whatever. Or we don't see him in a couple of clips and we're like, what's going on with so-and-so? So I think it's we should be careful to not overreact. But some of the things that I love, number one, earlier this week, Duke posted, the social media team posted, the guys literally having fun, cheering for each other. Some of it was in the weight room, others in the locker room, others on the court, but the guys were just having fun. And I believe that's very important, the camaraderie, because you do have these returning players, returning 4 starters, and you've got some freshmen coming in who do not expect to sit on that bench. And so you've got that kind of that potential clash. But what it looks like is that they're meshing, and it looks like they're realizing that, hey, we have the potential with the returning players and with this crop of freshmen, we have the potential to do something special. And so it seems like they're all on the same page, which I think is great. The second thing, once again, I believe it was earlier this week as well, it was great to see Kyle Filipowski in full sprint mode with weights tied around his waist.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, he had double hip surgery in the offseason. Literally what they were saying is the ball of his hip would not completely go in to I don't know, basically he had no agility.
Right.
It could not bend down but to a certain spot. And so this is going to help him, I believe, on the defensive end. It's going to help his flexibility. And so who knows? We may see a even greatly improved, more athletic Kyle Filipowski than we saw last season. So that's got me hyped. And then, you can watch those, the scrimmage videos are great. It looks like Jaden Shute has maybe adjusted his form a little bit on his shot. I'm not sure
Still
about
doesn't miss.
I know that's your guy.
That's one of my overreactions, Josh, is still that whole 10-minute clip, Jaden Shute does not miss a shot.
That's true. That's true. And
But
I'm
the
all
form does
for it.
look a little different. You're right on that.
Just a little bit from the side pocket, a little bit more than over his head. But it may be a way for him to get his shot off quicker. All those types of things. I mean, we know that we're in the Steph Curry era of basketball, and it's all about how quickly you can get the shot up and how much rotation you can get on that ball as quickly as possible. So I love that. And then, at the end of the day, Jeremy Roach returning, we've already discussed that, but I do believe, you're going to see that Quinn Cook-ish senior season. I think he's going to understand that Tyrese Proctor is that guy.
Yeah.
He's gonna have that ball in his hand, similar to Quinn and Tyus Jones. And I look forward to the season. The off-season videos just have me pumped to see what Duke's going to look like this year.
The entire world should be ready for Tyrese Proctor getting set for his sophomore season. I mean, that guy looks ridiculous in the best ways possible, and I think he's going to be an absolute game changer for Duke going into the season. Speaking of those clips, and again, in footage, we're really not seeing Filipowski featured in a lot of these. Overreactions are something that is easy to make, right? Because I will remind people, as I did last summer, you're not going to find a clip of Jaden Shoup missing a jump shot in those. He doesn't. You're also not going to find TJ Power really do anything whatsoever in the 5-on-5. But I don't think it's safe to assume that he's going to be nothing going into this upcoming season. I think he definitely has a role on this Duke basketball team. What I will say, though, that is abundantly clear when watching this footage, and Josh, I need thoughts from you. Not a whole lot of conversation about Sean Stewart going into the season, looking at the 4 freshmen coming in and joining the program. And when Mackenzie Mbaka was a part of the class, we spent way more time talking about Mac. But my goodness, some of the athletic plays we're seeing from Sean Stewart.
Yeah, there was a block that they showed last week sometime, and it was like he went up and then he continued up, to that second level. And I forget who it was who he blocked, but it was one of the smaller guards. And yeah, I mean, Sean Stewart, we obviously in the offseason, you lose Mbako and the fan base begins, to get a little, crazy. And then we don't land a big
In the portal.
And then there's cause for a little bit, and honestly, that's fair. That people are like, man, we really needed an extra big. But like you said, I believe Sean Stewart was kind of slept on. And not that he's a prototypical 5. I believe he's a 4. But we're playing positionless basketball this year. We are definitely going to run a lot of 5 out. We're going to definitely run a lot of spread spacing with Filipowski being your main big. And this is going to be a unique team. Coach Shire, as he spoke, if you've not listened to it yet on the Devil's Den podcast, Coach Shire talked about how the style of play this year, based upon the personnel, is going to be different than last year. It just is. It's going to have to be. And that's going to be because guys like Sean Stewart, they are flexible. They can play outside, but they also can protect the rim. They can play inside. So anyway, I agree with you on Sean Stewart. No one was talking about him. And I believe by December, a lot of people are going to be talking about him.
So excited for the upcoming season. A lot still to come for the Duke basketball program. Still need an assistant coach, right? Will Avery was hired in one of the new spots.
Breaking news, JJ.
Yeah.
Brendan Marks, as we are on this podcast recording, Brendan Marks just reported that Oklahoma assistant coach Emmanuel Dildy is being hired by Duke to replace Emil Jefferson's spot on the bench. Literally, he just tweeted it while we were on here.
Look at that. We've got a new assistant coach.
I mean, that's as breaking of news as we can get on here, JJ.
Which I love.
And I have no clue anything about this guy, honestly. But he is taking Emil Jefferson's spot on the Duke staff.
That's why people have to come back and listen to us tomorrow. Come back and listen to tomorrow's show, and we're going to break it all down. The new assistant coach for Duke men's basketball. That is awesome.
And shout out, by the way, to Brendan Marks, who's I know a regular guest on the show. So
very much so. Shout out to him for being on top of all the scoops there with Duke Hoops. Last question for you. What have you thought of the Brotherhood podcast? I know you're a busy man, but I know that you've had time. You've made time to make sure you're listening. What have you thought?
The only one I've not listened to the latest one with Jalen Blakes, and Jalen's my guy. I love Jalen, so I'm going to listen to that one soon.
Ryan Young is your guy, though, Josh.
That's it, man.
If anybody you love, that's the perfect role for him, being the host of this thing.
So when they announced that it was going to be the Brotherhood podcast, it was going to be a thing, I actually tweeted, with the right host, this is going to be epic. And honestly, I wasn't sure what they were going to go for. They were going to go for like a former player to host it, that kind of thing. But when I saw it was Ryan Young, I'm like, this is going to be incredible, and he has been great. He has been a really, really good host. I thought it was very cool. The Wojo episode was extremely cool. Just to see like even the mental health, emotional side of Steve Wojciechowski, and how he made the statement on that the greatest blessing of his life was that he got fired from Marquette because he was able to reprioritize his life. That was incredible. Some of the stories, and then Tyrese Proctor, them going back and forth and like kind of at each other like in a good way, and all that, and Tyrese like making fun of American food, like
Yeah.
Tough. It was tough. But all that to say, I'm looking forward to seeing who they bring on. Both former players, current players. The flip episode was great. I mean, talking about his decision to come back, he actually shared, I thought, quite a bit on that podcast, more than I expected him to, about his decision making and processes, and how he had kind of always kind of thought of himself as being a multi-year player and stuff like that. So it's been great. Duke is that was a great move in Ryan Young. That was the key. If the wrong guy is hosting the podcast, it's not as good.
So the Brotherhood podcast is getting an endorsement from Josh Cox. That's
100%. 100%. Yes. Yes.
Love that. Well, Josh, you're the absolute best. Looking forward to talking to you next week, and we'll be able to break down all of the exciting things to come for Duke football and basketball and so much more. All right?
Absolutely, JJ. Thanks for having me on, man.
That's my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast joining us once again here on the show today. Again, follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. Follow me on Twitter at _JJ_Jackson_. There we have it. A new assistant coach has been hired to replace Emil Jefferson. We discussed that and a whole lot more coming up on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Make sure you stay tuned for that one. That'll do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.